The night was dark and heavy with rain, thunder rolling across the silent mountain range as if nature itself was trying to hide something deep below. Few people ever came near these mountains because locals believed they were cursed. But under the rocks and snow far beneath the ground there was no curse, there was a secret. A secret that was meant to save humanity when everything else failed. Far below the mountain's surface, a hidden facility stretched like veins through the stone. Cold steel walls lined with lights echoing corridors, and the constant hum of machines gave the place an eerie life. It was not a normal military base. It was a place built in silence, away from the eyes of governments and civilians. Only a handful of people even knew it existed. To the outside world, it was nothing more than an abandoned Cold War bunker. But inside it was alive with something far more dangerous and far more hopeful. The project had a name whispered like a prayer among the scientists who worked there day and night. It was called Wake the Children. For years, the Earth had been under attack. Alien fleets had burned cities, oceans boiled under their fire, and billions had already been lost. Humanity's weapons, missiles, fleets, even nuclear fire, had done little more than slow the enemy down. The hope of survival grew thinner with every day. And yet, in this cold, secret place, a last gamble had been hidden away. Rows of cryogenic pods stretched down the long chamber. Each pod glowed with a pale blue light, frost collecting on the glass. Inside, the outlines of children could be seen, small bodies resting in silence, waiting for something. To a normal eye, they looked human. But they were not completely human. They were different. They were something humanity had designed in its most desperate hour. Dr. Elias Grant walked slowly along the chamber, his footsteps echoing against the metal floor. His eyes were tired, his face pale, but his heart still burned with stubborn determination. He was one of the last guardians of the project, and he knew that what slept inside these pods could change everything. Behind him, alarms flickered on a small console. Red lights pulsed, screens flashed warnings, and the voice of the computer cut through the silence. Unidentified approach detected. Hostile signatures inbound. Dr. Grant froze. He knew what that meant. The aliens had found them. He turned toward the control station and slammed a hand on the emergency system. The steel doors of the chamber began to lock, heavy bolts sliding into place. Soldiers in black armor rushed into the room, weapons ready. Their faces were grim. They knew this base was not built to withstand a full-scale attack. "Doctor," one soldier said, "we need to evacuate. If they breach the mountain, this place won't hold." But Dr. Grant shook his head. His eyes moved to the pods, to the sleeping children inside. "We cannot leave them. If they fall into alien hands, everything is lost. If they stay asleep, humanity is lost. This project is our only hope." The soldier hesitated, then lowered his voice. "Sir, with all respect, they're just children." Dr. Grant's expression hardened. "No, they are more than children. They are the future." The ground trembled, dust falling from the ceiling as the first enemy blasts struck the mountain above. Sirens screamed louder. The air filled with the sound of distant explosions. Somewhere above, the sky was burning. Dr. Grant moved quickly to the control panel that managed the pods. His hands hovered over the activation switch. For years they had planned for this day, and yet his heart raced as if he were standing at the edge of a cliff. He whispered to himself as though to steady his nerves. "Wake the children." He pressed the command. One pod at the far end of the chamber hissed loudly as the frost began to melt from its glass. Lights flickered. The hum of machines grew louder, and the pale glow inside the pod shifted into something brighter, almost golden. Soldiers turned, their weapons trembling slightly in their hands, unsure of what they were witnessing. Inside the pod, the small figure stirred. Eyes opened slowly, eyes that glowed faintly like embers in the dark. The child looked no older than 12, but something in the gaze was ancient, something not of ordinary birth. Dr. Grant stepped closer, his breath caught in his chest. "Welcome back," he whispered. The child blinked, then turned its head toward the locked steel doors. The sound of pounding, the screech of alien claws on metal filled the chamber. Yet the child did not look afraid. Instead, a soft voice escaped its lips. "They are here." Every soldier froze. How did the child know? The words were spoken with calm certainty, as though the attack outside was already known, already expected. The pounding grew louder. The metal doors buckled under pressure. Sparks flew as alien weapons cut through. In seconds, the enemy would pour into the room. The soldiers raised their rifles, fear clear in their eyes. Dr. Grant stood between them and the pod, his heart thundering, his mind torn between terror and hope. This was it, the moment the project had been built for. The child's glowing eyes locked onto Dr. Grant's face. "Wake the others," it said, the voice stronger this time, carrying an authority that silenced the alarms themselves, and then the steel doors cracked open. The steel doors of the hidden chamber screamed under the pressure, glowing lines cutting across the thick metal as alien claws and plasma torches burned through. The soldiers braced themselves, sweat sliding down their brows, every heartbeat counting down to the moment of breach. But in the center of the chaos, all eyes turned to the cryopod that had just awakened. The child inside stepped forward, bare feet touching the cold steel floor, steam curling around its small frame. Frost still clung to its hair and skin, but the glowing eyes burned like twin stars in the dim light. The soldiers didn't know what to make of it. Was this a savior or just another experiment gone wrong? Dr. Grant stood close, his chest rising and falling with nervous breaths. His entire career, his entire life had been dedicated to this moment. But even he had not expected the child to speak with such calm certainty. "Wake the others," it had said, as though it already knew the fate of the world outside. The pounding on the door grew sharper. Sparks scattered into the room as glowing cracks spread across the steel. The aliens would break through any second. A soldier hissed under his breath, "Doctor, we don't have time." "What are these things?" "They are not things," Dr. Grant snapped, his voice sharp for the first time. He turned toward the rows of glowing pods stretching like frozen coffins down the endless chamber. His voice dropped to a whisper. "They are humanity's last hope." The child's gaze shifted to the pods, eyes glowing brighter. It raised a hand, small, fragile, but steady, and the glass of the nearest pod began to hiss with steam. Frost melted. Machines whirred to life, and the hum of the facility deepened, vibrating through the steel floor like a heartbeat. Inside the pod, another small figure stirred. This one was taller, older perhaps, with features sharp and defined, almost regal. When the glass slid open, a rush of cold vapor filled the air, and the figure stepped out. Unlike the first, this one had marks across its skin, glowing lines like circuits running through its veins. Its eyes opened, shining with a piercing blue light. The soldiers stepped back instinctively. "What are they?" one whispered. Dr. Grant swallowed hard. His voice trembled but carried conviction. "They are the result of the Genesis program. Human blood, human will, combined with something far older than us, something the aliens feared once, and will fear again." Before the soldiers could respond, the first child tilted its head toward the door. The pounding stopped suddenly. A silence fell, sharp and heavy, before the sound of claws scraping against metal echoed once more. They were being listened to. The aliens outside had sensed the awakening. The second child's voice cut the silence, calm but cold. "They are afraid." The words froze everyone. Soldiers exchanged uneasy glances, the weight of the unknown pressing against their nerves. How could a child speak with such certainty? How could it feel fear that was not its own? Dr. Grant's hands shook as he typed frantically on the control panel, initiating a wider sequence. One by one, more pods began to glow, the frost hissing and cracking as hidden figures stirred within. Each pod carried a different shape, a different design, as though every child had been crafted for a different purpose. Some had broad shoulders and powerful arms, others had lean forms built for speed. Some looked human, yet others had subtle differences. Skin that shimmered faintly, eyes with unnatural patterns, veins that pulsed like liquid light. The chamber pulsed with energy now, alive in a way no one had ever seen before. The hum of machines turned into a low, vibrating chorus echoing through the walls. The soldiers who had moments ago braced for death now stood transfixed. One soldier muttered, "This is impossible. We can't trust them. They're not human." The first child turned its glowing eyes toward him. The soldier froze, his rifle lowering without thought. The gaze pierced into his mind, and for a moment he felt something, an image, a memory that wasn't his own. He saw burning cities, falling towers, screams of millions, and then silence. It was as though the child had placed humanity's pain directly into his mind. He staggered, gasping for breath. "They carry our memories," Dr. Grant explained quickly. "Every one of them was made with the genetic echo of humanity itself. They don't just fight for us. They are us." The sound of the steel doors cracking grew deafening now. Alien screeches pierced the air as plasma burned through the final layer of protection. The soldiers raised their rifles again, terror mixing with a new, fragile hope. The second child stepped forward, its glowing veins pulsing brighter. Its voice was low, but it filled the entire chamber.
They come.
We will face them. And then, with a final roar, the door shattered. Metal shards exploded inward as alien warriors surged through, creatures of twisted armor and burning eyes, weapons raised high. But the children did not flinch. Their eyes glowed brighter, their small frames trembling with energy. One by one, the sleeper pods cracked open, releasing their strange occupants into the world once more. Dr. Grant whispered, his voice trembling with awe and fear alike. The children are awake. The chamber became a battlefield in the span of a heartbeat. The steel doors collapsed in a shower of sparks and fire, the shriek of metal tearing apart echoing like thunder through the chamber. Smoke poured in, black and choking, and from that smoke came the enemy, tall armored creatures with blades that hissed with living energy, eyes burning with crimson fire. Their claws scraped the steel floor, leaving glowing scars wherever they stepped. The soldiers inside opened fire immediately, bullets tearing through the dark. The chamber erupted with deafening noise, rifle fire, screams, the crackling of alien weapons striking walls. Sparks flew like falling stars, but the aliens didn't slow. They moved with terrifying precision, cutting through the storm of bullets, their bodies stronger than steel. One soldier screamed as an alien blade sliced through his rifle, the weapon clattering in pieces to the floor. Another was hurled across the room, his armor crumpling as he slammed against the wall. The defenders were brave, but they were only human, and the enemy was relentless. In the center of the chaos, the awakened children stood still. Their glowing eyes followed every movement, their faces calm, almost cold, as though they had been waiting for this moment since birth. The first child raised a hand. A ripple of energy pulsed outward, invisible but heavy like a wave of pressure. The bullets in midair froze, hanging like drops of rain suspended in time. Alien blades stopped inches from human throats. For one impossible second, the entire battlefield held still. Then, with a sharp flick of the child's wrist, the bullets reversed their paths. Metal tore backward, ripping into alien armor, sending shrieks of rage and pain echoing through the chamber. Soldiers gasped, unsure whether they were witnessing salvation or something even more terrifying. The second child stepped forward, glowing veins pulsing brighter. It clenched its fists, and the steel floor beneath the aliens bent upward like clay. The ground shifted, throwing the enemy off balance. Some were hurled into the ceiling, others pinned against the walls as the metal twisted like a living thing. Dr. Grant watched with wide eyes, his heart slamming against his chest. For years he had dreamed of what these children could do, but even he had not imagined this level of power. They were not weapons in the way missiles were weapons. They were living storms, embodiments of humanity's rage and survival. Yet the aliens did not flee. More poured through the shattered doors, hundreds of them, their screeches blending into a single howl of fury. Their command was simple: destroy the project, kill the children. They knew what was waking here, and their fear drove them harder than ever before. The soldiers rallied behind the children, courage rekindled by the impossible sight before them. One shouted over the chaos, "Protect the pods! Don't let them through." But it was clear. The humans alone could not stop the tide. The first child turned its head toward Dr. Grant. The glowing eyes burned with something deeper now, something that almost felt ancient. More must wake, it said. Grant's hands shook as he sprinted back to the console, activating another row of pods. Frost cracked, glass hissed, and 3 more children stepped into the chamber, each different, each carrying the same unnatural glow. One's skin shimmered like liquid silver, another's voice hummed with a low vibration that shook the air itself, and the third's eyes blazed gold like sunlight. The battle shifted again. The golden-eyed child screamed, a sound like thunder rolling across the battlefield. The shockwave blasted outward, hurling aliens into the walls, shattering their armor like glass. The silver-skinned one moved with impossible speed, darting between the enemy like a phantom, claws and blades breaking against its body without leaving a scratch. The third child extended both arms, and the alien weapons dissolved in their hands, melting into harmless dust. The chamber lit up with chaos and brilliance. Humans fired, aliens roared. Children shone like fragments of starlight in the smoke and fire, But the enemy had not come unprepared. From the smoke at the rear, a massive figure stepped forward. Taller than all the others, its armor black and red, its weapon a spear that pulsed with dark energy. The ground shook under its steps. The aliens hissed as it passed them, bowing their heads in fear. This was no ordinary soldier. This was a commander. The commander raised its spear, pointing it toward the children. "Extinguish them!" it hissed in a voice that rattled every bone in the chamber. The children turned together, eyes glowing brighter, their small forms framed by the pods still opening behind them. They did not step back. They did not tremble. The first child raised its hand once more, voice steady, words cutting through the storm of battle. "Humanity does not kneel." The soldiers felt the words in their bones. They gripped their weapons tighter, their fear replaced by something else, defiance. The commander roared and charged. Sparks lit the chamber as alien and human, soldier and child, collided in a clash that would decide the fate of the base, and perhaps the entire world. The alien commander's spear struck the ground with a crack that sent a wave of fire tearing across the chamber floor. Steel twisted, soldiers were thrown off their feet and sparks rained from the ceiling. The cryopods shook violently, alarms wailing as systems struggled to hold together. The soldiers screamed orders, their rifles rattling, but bullets bounced uselessly against the commander's dark armor. The smaller alien warriors regrouped, forming a deadly circle, their burning eyes fixed on the children. For a moment, it seemed the secret project was about to end before it had truly begun. Then the first child, the one with glowing ember eyes, stepped forward through the chaos. Its small frame looked fragile compared to the towering alien commander, but its presence carried a weight that pressed on everyone's chest. The child's voice, soft yet commanding, echoed through the chamber. "Enough." The flames around the commander's spear froze in place, hanging midair like shards of glass. The smoke stopped moving. Even the screeches of the aliens seemed to fade. Soldiers felt their breath catch in their throats as time itself seemed to hesitate. The child lifted a hand, and the suspended fire collapsed inward, compressing into a glowing orb of energy. With a simple flick of the wrist, the orb hurled back at the aliens, detonating in a burst of white light. Dozens of enemies vaporized instantly, their armor collapsing into ash. The soldiers stood in stunned silence. One whispered, "God help us." "What are they?" Dr. Grant's voice trembled, but his eyes burned with conviction. "Not gods, not monsters. Humanity's design. Humanity's future." But the commander still stood, its dark armor scorched but unbroken. It roared, the sound like 1,000 blades scraping against steel, and lunged forward with terrifying speed. Its spear slashed down toward the first child. At the last instant, another pod burst open. Frost exploded outward, glass shattering across the floor, and from it stepped a second child, its veins glowing bright blue. The child raised both arms, and the spear halted in mid-strike, vibrating against an invisible force. Sparks crackled where weapon met unseen barrier. The commander snarled, pushing harder, but the barrier held. The second child's voice was low and steady. "We are awake." The soldiers gasped as more pods cracked open down the chamber. One child emerged with eyes shining gold, another with silver patterns across their skin, another whose voice hummed with a strange vibration that made the air itself tremble. Each one different, each one terrifying, each one beautiful in its own unnatural way. Together, they moved without hesitation. The golden-eyed child lifted its face, and light poured from its body like the dawn of a new sun. The shadows of the aliens burned away, their armor blistering under the brilliance. The silver-skinned one darted forward, faster than the eye could follow, cutting through enemy lines with bare hands that struck harder than steel. The humming child opened its mouth, releasing a sound so deep it shook the very walls, collapsing entire squads of aliens as their bodies convulsed under the vibration. The battlefield was no longer human versus alien. It was something far beyond. It was the first true awakening. Yet with every strike, every display of impossible power, the soldiers watching felt a growing unease. These children were fighting for humanity, but were they still human? Their eyes, their voices, the cold certainty in their faces. It was like watching ancient beings wearing the skin of children. Dr. Grant felt the weight of this truth press heavily on him. He had always known the project was dangerous, that humanity's survival came with a price. But seeing it now, seeing these children awaken and wield powers that bent the laws of Nature. He wondered if the world was ready for what it had created. The alien commander, though battered, refused to fall. It roared again, summoning dark energy into its armor, growing larger, its red glow intensifying until even the floor cracked beneath its feet. It charged, ignoring the humans, focusing only on the children. The ember-eyed child stepped forward once more, its small frame dwarfed by the commander's monstrous presence. It looked at the soldiers, at Dr. Grant, then at the other awakened children. Its voice rose, calm but carrying a power that silenced the chaos. "We do not fight for ourselves. We fight for all of you." Then its eyes blazed like twin stars. Flames burst outward, wrapping its body in a storm of light. The ground shook violently, the chamber walls quaking as if the entire mountain might collapse. The child leapt into the air, meeting the alien commander head-on in a clash that shook the facility to its core. Soldiers shielded their faces as the brilliance consumed the room. The other children raised their hands, their powers intertwining like threads of light, weaving into a shield that protected the remaining pods and humans. For the first time, humanity was not just surviving. It was striking back, Dr. Grant whispered, his voice trembling with awe. "The first awakening has begun." The chamber still shook from the clash. The alien commander had been driven back, its armor cracked, its red glow fading under the storm of the children's light. Smoke hung thick in the air, carrying the smell of burned steel and alien blood. Soldiers coughed, their rifles trembling in their hands, but none dared look away. What they had just witnessed was beyond their understanding. The children stood, in a half-circle, their glowing forms casting long shadows across the walls. Their faces showed no fear, no doubt, only calm certainty, as if this battle was a path they had already walked in dreams. Dr. Grant's chest tightened as he stared at them. For decades he had carried the weight of this project in silence. Now as he saw their power unleashed, he knew there was no turning back. Humanity would never be the same. The ember-eyed child spoke, its voice soft but heavy, carrying over the groans of the dying aliens. "They know what we are," it said, looking toward the shattered doorway where more enemies gathered in the smoke. "That is why they come, that is why they will not stop." A soldier barked nervously. "What are you?" His voice cracked under the weight of fear. "You're not human. You can't be." The silver-skinned child turned to him, its eyes glowing faintly, and for a brief moment the soldier's rifle lowered without him realizing it. A wave of calm pressed into his mind, a strange warmth that reminded him of memories long buried, his mother's face, his first steps, the laughter of friends long gone. "We are human," the silver child said quietly. "More human than you think." Dr. Grant swallowed hard and stepped forward. His voice shook but carried the truth no one had dared to say aloud until now. "The Genesis program was created after the first invasion," he began. "When Earth realized our weapons could not match theirs, we searched for something different, something older, something buried in our own blood." The soldiers stared at him, wide-eyed as the children remained silent. Grant's eyes flicked to the pods, the rows of sleeping figures still waiting to wake. "Human DNA is not simple," he continued. "It carries echoes, memories of an ancient war, a time before history. The aliens who strike us now, they have fought us before, long before we ever called ourselves human." Gasps filled the chamber. One soldier whispered, "That's impossible. We would have known. We would have remembered." The blue-veined child shook its head. "You forgot. They made you forget." The aliens outside howled, their screeches rising in fury as if the words themselves burned them. The commander, still, alive though weakened, slammed its spear into the ground, the sound echoing like thunder. Its voice rasped through the chamber. "Abominations, you should have stayed buried." The ember-eyed child turned toward it, unblinking. "You fear us because you remember us. You remember when your kind first lost." The soldiers exchanged uneasy glances. They had expected monsters, perhaps weapons, but what they saw now was worse and better at once. These were children, yes, but they were also something far larger. the living proof of a forgotten war. The proof that humanity carried a weapon inside its very bloodline. Dr. Grant finally said the words aloud, the truth that had haunted him for years. They are not our creations. They are our inheritance. The chamber went silent, broken only by the hiss of steam and the distant rumble of alien forces regrouping. One of the younger soldiers spoke, his voice trembling but filled with awe. Then, they're not just children. They're warriors. Ancient warriors. The golden-eyed child stepped forward, light flickering across its skin like fire at dawn. We are both, it said, child and warrior, flesh and memory. We carry your fear, your love, your rage. We are everything humanity was, and everything it must become again. At that moment, more pods began to open. Steam rolled across the floor like mist, and shadows of new figures moved inside the glass. The sound of cracking ice echoed like bones breaking, one after another, as the facility brought its hidden army back to life. The aliens screamed in fury outside, their commander roaring louder than all. It raised its spear and called down a surge of dark energy, shaking the mountain above. The ceiling cracked, debris falling like meteors. Time was running out. Dr. Grant turned back to the soldiers, his face pale, but his eyes fierce. Do you see now? He demanded. Do you understand why we kept this secret? Humanity was never meant to fight with guns and ships alone. We were meant to remember what we are. The ember-eyed child lifted its gaze to the broken ceiling where light from the burning sky spilled into the chamber. Its voice was steady, powerful, and unafraid. Wake them all. The war has only begun, and with those words, the chamber roared to life. Every pod lit up at once, every sleeper stirring, every hum of machinery blending into a single rising chorus. For the first time in generations, humanity was not running. For the first time, it was rising. The mountain roared as if the earth itself had awakened. One after another, the cryopods split open, spilling white steam into the chamber until the floor looked like a battlefield lost in fog. Silhouettes stepped out, dozens of them now. Each child carried something different in their presence. Some burned with light, some hummed with strange energy, others moved with speed too fast to follow. The soldiers, still breathing hard from the last clash, watched in silence. Their rifles felt like toys compared to the power now standing beside them. One whispered, almost in prayer, God, we have an army. The alien commander shrieked in fury, slamming its spear into the floor. From behind it, hundreds of warriors surged forward, their red eyes glowing through the smoke. They came not like an army but like a flood, their claws scraping steel, their voices a chorus of hate. And this time, humanity did not step back. The ember-eyed child raised its hand. Together, it said. The children moved as one. Golden light flared, silver forms blurred, voices rose in tones that bent reality itself. The chamber became a storm. Bolts of plasma fired by the aliens froze mid-air, then spun backward, tearing through their own lines. The silver-skinned children darted among the enemy, untouchable blurs that left broken armor in their wake. One child lifted both hands, and the ceiling itself seemed to obey. The falling debris hung in mid-air, then rained down only on the aliens. The humans joined the fight too. Soldiers pressed forward behind the children, their rifles cracking, grenades exploding among the confused enemy ranks. For the first time since the invasion began, the battle did not feel hopeless. For the first time, humanity was not just defending, it was striking back. Dr. Grant stood at the control console, his eyes wide as he watched the facility's full strength come alive. It's working, he whispered, almost to himself. After all these years, it's finally working. Outside, the sky lit with fire. Alien ships circled above, unleashing blasts that tore into the mountainside. Yet even there, the awakening had begun. Far beyond this single base, other hidden pods across the world were stirring. signals triggered by the facility's activation. In cities buried under ruins, in deserts abandoned by war, in forgotten islands across the seas, the children of humanity were rising. On the battlefield, the alien commander pushed through the storm, its dark armor cracked and glowing with rage. It swung its spear in a wide arc, blasting several children backward in a surge of red fire. They fell, but even as they struck the ground, their bodies shimmered, wounds sealing in seconds. The commander roared in frustration. "You cannot win! You are shadows of a dead race. We destroyed you once, we will destroy you again." But the ember-eyed child met its gaze unflinching. "No, you destroyed the memory, not the blood." With those words, the awakened army surged forward. A child with crystal-like skin spread its arms, and jagged shards of energy shot outward like a storm of spears, piercing the alien ranks. Another clapped its hands together, sending shockwaves rippling through the floor, toppling enemies in waves. One child simply whispered, and the sound alone shattered alien weapons into dust. The soldiers followed, courage flaring in their hearts. They shouted, screamed, fought with renewed strength. Their bullets found targets. Their blades cut through where before they had only bought time. And then, something even greater happened. The power of the children began to spread. As soldiers fought alongside them, their own strength seemed to grow. A man who had been too weak to lift his wounded comrade suddenly carried him with ease. A woman who had been blinded by smoke saw clearly through the haze. It was as if fighting beside the children awakened something small, something hidden inside every human. Dr. Grant saw it and felt his throat tighten. "It's not just them," he whispered. "They're unlocking us." Outside, alien ships began to fall. One shattered in the sky like a burning star, crashing into the valley below. Another lost control, spiraling into its own fleet. The humans inside the base erupted in cheers as they realized the impossible was happening. Humanity was pushing the enemy back, yet victory was not complete. Above the chaos, the alien commander lifted its spear high, calling down a surge of energy unlike anything before. The mountain trembled violently, cracks tearing across the ceiling, threatening to bring the whole facility down. The ember-eyed child turned to the others. "We hold the line," it said. Dozens of glowing eyes focused as one. The children linked hands, their light merging into a single shield that spread across the chamber like a dome. The alien blast struck, crashing against the shield with a force that split stone and shattered steel. But the shield held. Humans crouched behind it, staring upward in awe as light met darkness. For the first time since the war began, humanity was not begging for survival. It was standing tall, teeth bared, fists clenched and voices raised. For the first time, humanity was fighting back, and winning. Dr. Grant pressed a trembling hand against the console, his voice breaking into a whisper of hope. The tide has turned, and yet, above the mountain, a shadow stretched across the burning sky. The alien mothership had arrived. The sky tore open as the mothership arrived. It was larger than any city on Earth, a shadow blotting out the stars, its surface glowing with rivers of molten light. The ground shook as its engines howled, and from its core came a voice carried across the battlefield, deep and merciless. "Extinguish the fire before it spreads." The soldiers in the base fell silent, their courage faltering as the mountain trembled. If the smaller ships had nearly broken them, how could they stand against this? Even the children paused, their glowing eyes lifted to the heavens, faces reflecting the immense shadow above. Dr. Grant's throat tightened. He had feared this moment, prayed it would never come. "The mothership," he whispered. "They've come to end it." The alien commander raised its spear, its armor blazing with new energy as the mothership fed power into it. Its broken body grew stronger, its roar shaking the chamber like an earthquake. The remaining alien warriors rallied around their leader, a tide of crimson eyes and burning weapons pouring into the base. But the ember-eyed child stepped forward, its small hand raised. Its voice was calm, unshaken as it spoke to the others. "Together, all of us." The children linked hands and light began to spread, not just among themselves but through the soldiers as well. Every man and woman felt warmth flood their bodies, strength filling their veins, fear peeling away like old skin. Wounded soldiers rose to their feet. Exhausted ones found power they never knew they had. Humanity itself was awakening. The mothership unleashed its first strike. A beam of searing energy ripped down from the sky, tearing into the mountain, vaporizing stone and steel in a heartbeat. But before it could reach the chamber, the children's shield flared, a dome of light that split the air. The beam struck and stopped. The shield trembled, cracked, screamed under the force, but it held. The soldiers cheered, voices raw, their hope burning like wildfire. The alien commander roared in fury and charged, its spear crashing against the shield. The children staggered, the ground splitting beneath them, but they did not let go of each other's hands. The golden-eyed child shone brighter, the silver-skinned one moved faster, the blue-veined one pressed its barrier harder. Together they resisted the unstoppable. Then something unexpected happened. The humans, ordinary soldiers who had fought only with rifles and grit, began to glow too. Their bodies, once fragile, pulsed with faint light. A woman raised her rifle, and the bullets she fired blazed like comets, tearing through alien armor. A man swung his broken bayonet, and the blade cut cleanly through an enemy twice his size. Dr. Grant's eyes widened as he realized the truth. "It's not just the children," he whispered. "It's us. It's all of us. They're awakening what was always inside humanity." The ember-eyed child turned to him briefly, a faint smile flickering across its lips. "The blood remembers," it said. The mothership, sensing the shift, roared across the sky, unleashing wave after wave of fire. The mountain cracked, avalanches fell. The world seemed ready to break. But inside the chamber, light surged. The children and soldiers, now united in one force, pushed back as one. The alien commander struck again, but this time its spear shattered in its hands, fragments scattering like dying stars. It screamed, rage twisting its face before a storm of light swallowed it whole. The children raised their joined hands to the sky, their voices rising in unison, not in words but in a sound that shook the heavens. The mothership's beam met their light and faltered. The massive ship trembled, its rivers of molten glow flickering, its shadow shuddering as cracks spread across its surface. Soldiers screamed with joy, their voices joining the rising chorus. Humanity, for the first time in living memory, was not running. It was not hiding. It was standing. The mothership let out a final, thunderous roar before exploding in a blinding storm of light that lit the sky for miles. The shockwave swept across the battlefield, erasing the remaining alien forces in an instant. Silence followed, deep, heavy, and unreal. The shield dissolved. The light dimmed. The children lowered their hands, their glowing eyes slowly fading to something calmer, almost human again. The soldiers stood among the wreckage, staring at the broken sky, the burning pieces of the mothership falling like dying stars. Dr. Grant stepped forward, his face pale with awe. He looked at the children, their small bodies standing strong amidst the ruins. His voice cracked as he whispered, We are saved." The ember-eyed child turned, its gaze soft but firm. "No," it said. "This is only the beginning." Outside, across the world, other hidden facilities were awakening. In deserts, jungles, cities, and oceans, more children stirred, more lights blazed, more voices rose. Humanity's inheritance was rising everywhere. The war was not over. But the tide had changed forever. And as dawn broke over the ruined mountain, humanity stood taller, fiercer, brighter than it ever had. The children were awake. The future had begun,